as most of you know. And we host these breakfasts every 2 weeks with one investor and a small group of entrepreneurs so that it's more meaningful. You can get your questions answered. You can ask, whatever. We'll also ask you to briefly introduce yourself. And we want to thank Kettle Space, which is I was going to say virtual restaurant co-working. It's restaurant co-working space, very affordable restaurant co-working, but they've moved to a virtual space and it's free to join. So you should consider doing that. And this week, again, we're hosting Brian because we had a power outage last time and a lot of people couldn't make it. About half the people couldn't make it. So. But he's going to cover different topics this time. And Brian was chairman of the New York Angels for a long time. And now he's running New York Venture Partners. I don't know if you want people to introduce themselves first or if you want to start, Brian. It's up to you. Oops, more people coming.
Right. So I do a very interactive experience. And so I will get through it all. Been waiting for Kyle. Where have you been, Kyle?
Yeah, Kyle.
See what I mean?
Morning, Brian.
We waited all this time.
All this time.
Kyle, all of those in your background on your wall. What are those frames? They look impressive. What are they?
This is the wall of family pictures behind me in the basement.
Yeah, what's on the wall there? I mean, obviously somebody wanted to put something up that they're proud of. What are they?
It's a lot of me and my siblings playing sports, actually.
They're beautifully done. Look how organized.
Yeah.
That's credit to my mom, not me. But thank you.
I mean, to hang that many and to make
And she hung them properly, too.
It almost looks like a Pinterest page on your wall. Very nice. I like that.
Excuse me.
Okay. David. Morning, David. All right. Let me just. Eric, are you still there?
He's there. Oh, we don't know if he's still there.
Right. Okay. So a lot of what I enjoy doing is talking about things that you've never talked about, things that really matter. And one would describe that as the inside baseball of the New York City ecosystem for startup, the inside baseball of raising money from angel investors and venture investors. So I've been doing this for about 45 years.
Wow.
It's just ridiculous. But so the New York City startup environment has been my hood. People like Bonnie have been the architects of a lot of what the wonderful old New York City ecosystem. And I don't want to be melancholy about it. I'm certainly, like many of our esteemed colleagues in the startup system, sad that we're not going to be able to hug and connect the way we used to.
Yeah.
But from a distance, we'll do our best. So this is sort of the best we can do from a distance. My interest is to cover things that I didn't cover the last time I did this about 2 weeks ago. There were some people who wanted to do it again. So I'm going to do my best. But every one of you will get a unique, specific experience. I'll answer all your questions, of course, but I won't hold back in any way, shape, or form to make you feel as though you're getting sort of the top answer. I want to get you the core answer. So Bonnie asked me, what else do you want to cover? And I'm going to look at covering, when I gave a talk at ERA about 3 months before COVID, on where does love, and that usually makes people smile when you have a conversation about the LOV word. See, people are smiling already. It's an important part of my life. It's not deep, it's not spiritual, but it's an important part of making you a whole person, and that you can be an entrepreneur. Now, are all of you startup founders? Yeah, see all your faces and you're nodding.
Andrew's an investor, as is.
Who's an investor?
Yes.
Andrew's an investor.
Yes, Kyle's an investor, and Eric is an investor.
Right. Well, Eric is a member of the New York Angels.
Yes.
I've known Eric a long time, and he's a brilliant product designer, one of the best I've ever known. So being in a position to understand where the personal part of your life fits into both the investor as well as the entrepreneur, I, in my book, would always talk about meeting people and having 3 meals with them before I would invest in them. The breakfast meal is to talk about the big picture, the sun coming up. The lunch would be a little bit more close to the specifics about their project. And then dinner would be much more specific. Hi, Christian. would be much more specific about the ability to execute. So the personal part of being a founder or even an investor, and I generally don't talk about it from the investor standpoint, not as casually as I'll talk about it from the standpoint of the founder, but how many of you are holding off on life because of your being a founder? And unfortunately, too many do. And I have certainly found that is a bad thing to do, right? I'm not going to quote any specific research other than anecdotally, having done this for 45 years, you've got to be a happy founder. And a happy founder is somebody who doesn't put their life on hold, their personal life on hold. So I talk about it a lot, and people at some point in time get that. Because to be a real founder, the challenges and the escapades you deal with on an ongoing basis are managed in a more warm way when you have a little bit more love in your life. So don't leave that to the side. That's a very integral part of making for a successful founder. People don't always remember growing up, we had dials on things. Some younger people don't know what dials are, right? But dials are those things you could turn and tune a little bit. And while there's many rationales as to what those dials should be, money, people, relationship, partners, knowledge, experience, support, all those things, every one of them is a finely tuned mechanism on your own personal dashboard of success. And one of those dials I openly describe as the love dial. How much love do you need in your life, and make sure that that's an important part of it. Okay, so I'm going to switch now to another important piece of the equation, which people don't generally talk about, and that is hiring funny people. This is that levity moment where you say, what's he talking about? Well, the fact is, how many of us enjoy being around people who are funny? There are people who are, there are people who are kind of boring. Investors don't tend to invest in them. No matter what you may think about the fact that it's not that important, it's a long relationship, and you're building a relationship based on some connection, and being funny, even sarcastically funny, which is a talent, is very useful. And sarcastically funny gets you through, Daniel. Hi, Daniel. Being sarcastically funny. Are you funny, Daniel?
I'm sorry?
Are you funny?
Am I funny? Sometimes I am, yes.
You go. See, Daniel said he's funny. And
Hey,
being
Daniel,
funny,
how are you?
yeah. And
How are you? Good to hear from you.
Haven't seen Daniel in a long time.
right, and being funny,
Yeah.
you smile more. And you tend to want to, I learned this a long time ago, simple is better. But people, remember this, people do business with people they want to do business with. I love simplicity. People do business with people they want to do business with. And an investor is somebody you're doing business with, and they have to want to see you again. They have to want to know they're going to see you more. And if you're funny and you smile a lot, and I know that David just smiled, you're going to be a little bit more attractive in an opportunistic way for somebody to say, I want a relationship with that person. So put it on your list. Smile and be funny. And the art of sarcasm also is a valuable art, which is part of the idea of funny, which gets you through the tough times. And not always do you have good answers, but sarcastic wit can get you there. I have too many examples for that. Another element of the personal. Everybody talks about the word passion. It's a horrible word. I'm going to be so successful, Brian, because I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. I said, do you know how to create a balance sheet? No, I don't know how to create a balance sheet, but I'm really passionate. Do you know how to sell? No, I'm not really that good at selling, but I'm really passionate. Come on, stop asking me specifics. I'm really passionate. And you've been told over and over again to express your passion. Now, in social causes, passion's great. I think passion works. You care about people who are homeless. You care about people who are needing to learn. But in generally business, it's grit, it's determination. It's words like that that fit better. But passion, Passion is a blinding part of being a successful founder. It doesn't create any more knowledge for you. It just says I'm emotionally more connected. And as a friend of mine once said, you know, passion is sort of the kind of thing that's like gas that goes through you. You know, I'm passionate now, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be passionate later. So try not to, in most cases, use that word. Use words like grit, determination. Those are the words that really matter the most. I always like to, as a behavioralist, I always like to talk about what people are thinking. So when you're giving presentations to anyone, raising money particularly, the question is, what words are you using? And I listen, and I specifically, because of my background, but investors in the same way listen for tentative words. So for example, Carolyn, do you use words like maybe, perhaps, if in your presentations?
I try not to.
Good. I knew that was going to be your answer. Good. Try not to use tentative words. Can you imagine if over a period of 15 minutes, you heard a lot of, we'll see. Well, I'm not sure, but we're going to try. Now, while that may be accurate, there's no need for those words. We're going to make this happen. There's a greater tendency to want to believe. That's the next element of what I want to talk about. There's a greater tendency to want to believe in somebody when they have a great deal of focus on their ability to succeed. Now, no one wants somebody to be, as somebody once described them, as happy idiots. But we do want all the words that you use in your presentations to be much more tentative, because somebody's making a bet, and that bet has to be something that's more definitive than something might happen or we hope it to happen. There's that other line I've used over the years, wantrepreneurs living on hopium. Have any of you heard that before?
From you.
Yes, I've used that quite a bit. A wantrepreneur, again, is a person who is saying, I'm going to try. Maybe we'll see. Right? And then the other element of it is their hope is what they're really hoping is going to be their route to success. And unfortunately, it shouldn't be. You know, hope, even in the world now of COVID, doesn't get you anywhere. You know, you can't hope that we're all going to get out of this. We're going to have to work hard, specifically, and be determined to figure out how to get out of this. So what are investors thinking? They're thinking who I can believe in. Daniel, you're upside down. There you are. Okay. They're wondering, who can I believe in? And reaching out to people who you don't know, it's much easier to start your presentations. And I've done this thousands of times. I get input from all the founders. I tell them to do this. Try giving a presentation the normal way, which is, hi, I'm, Daniel, and I'm from this company, and here's what we're going to do. And instead, start out by saying, here's what I believe in. And relate the first contact of your presentation to the word, here's what I believe in. Now imagine yourself as the investor when somebody sparks the initial evolution of a relationship with you by sharing something as personal as what you believe in. You immediately stand up and go, that's something I have to listen closely to. They're now sharing something from the heart. It's hard to get 15 minutes from the brain, right? It's much easier to get 5 minutes from the heart. And every time you speak about what you're doing and where you're going and how you're going to do it, the investor is asking themselves, do I believe you? Do I believe in what you're doing? And that's a little bit more faith and spirit than it is fact. And unfortunately, when you're a founder, there's not much to actually grab that's fact, because a lot of it is where you're going. But sharing the belief and getting somebody to believe you every time you say something. Do I believe them? Do I believe in them? That gets a lot of money coming into a company. I've seen it work over and over and over again. And of course, I've seen thousands of presentations. I listen to 50 presentations or more a month. And I want to be personally, emotionally connected with what the person believes in. I know this sounds simplistic, but believe me, it works. Tell people what you believe in. The other conversation I love having with founders is I invest in founders that appear to be in control of what they're doing. I can't watch you run your business. Though I'd love to hang out with you, I'd love to sit there while I listen to what you're doing and how your relationship with your team evolves. I'd love to do that, but I can't. That would be a great way of getting a better indication as to how well you run your business, how you think. But I can't do that. So what is it that I can watch? I can watch how in control you are of raising money. Wow, that's a highly important strategic imperative. If it appears that you are really smart about raising money, that you know terms on your term sheet, you know why not to use a safe note, you know why not to use a convertible note, you know why certain terms are better than others, I am going to be much more interested in working with you, because here you are dealing with what is a very important, critical business need, and you are really in control of it. And that's a big indicator to me, that if you're really in control of raising money and not asking the kinds of questions that are so easily found online, because everybody has an opinion, that matters a lot. How do you use control in your business to raise money, and how smart you are about raising it? And that's what investors are thinking. They're asking themselves, how smart are they? How smart are they at running their business? I can't see that, but I can see how smart they are at raising money. Are you raising too little? So there was a company that I just invested in. They had 3 founders, and all 3 founders shared 33%. 33 1/3%, right? That makes sense. They did their first round, and it was, unfortunately, I thought, too low a valuation. Isn't that strange? An investor saying your valuation is too low? Why did I do that? Can anybody tell me?
So maybe there's not enough vested interest by all 3 of the founders to feel like they are compelled to work hard enough to actually execute.
Interesting answer. Why else do you think that's a problem? 3 founders, 33% each, approximately, of course, and they did too low a valuation.
There's no room for you to invest?
No room for me to invest? No. That's what they took as founder stocks. That's where they started at, right? No, the answer is actually pretty straightforward. After their first round, they were diluted by 25 to 30%. They had each now about 25% in the company after their first round.
They didn't have a pool. They didn't set aside.
No. In fact, they had a pool
Oh.
that which then diluted them even more.
Oh.
Right? So they even went down to the low to mid 20s, and now they didn't raise enough money. Right? Things didn't happen the way they hoped. Never does, right? And now they have to raise a bridge round, and bridge rounds are generally a sign of weakness of a company.
Yeah.
Not either having enough revenue or having been smart enough to raise enough money for a longer trajectory, right? Those 2 things really work in unison. And now the bridge round, because they don't have the numbers behind them, is also going to be a too low a valuation that they set with no real new revenue, right? How much more can they have as a valuation? It's a little bit more advanced. The product is a little bit better, but still no real traction. And then they're going to do another seed round on top of that.
Nice.
So by the time they do their second seed round, which is ridiculous, and they've done a bridge prior to that as well as their first seed round, because they didn't raise enough with a high enough valuation, their individual ownership in the company is going to be in the teens. And then when they do their scaling round, which is their A round, they're going to have about 12% share in the company, each of them. And it may turn out that they have to hire new people, and the venture, people want the venture, financiers want them to have a bigger pool so they can, give more to new executive employees. They will have no incentive. What percentage of founders of venture-backed companies that exit? Let me repeat that. What percentage of venture-backed companies, founders that exit, don't make a penny?
A lot of them, I know.
70%. Wow. Because founders don't adequately think. And investors, this was the situation. This company, I went to their investors. I said, they need to have a higher valuation. And the investors thought I was crazy. I said, we have to be aligned with them. Investing isn't about taking. Investing is about creating the optimal investment environment for everybody to be successful. But their investors wouldn't budge. Well, that was the agreement we got. And I said, no, scrap that agreement. You're going to be investing in a company where the founders have no skin in the game to feel like they're going to make any money for how hard they have to work, but they wouldn't change it. I couldn't get them to do it. So now I have to try and figure out how to get them more shares in the company. And so they're already depressed because they see what the scenario is. So I'm bringing up the word scenario, alignment, aligning yourselves with with really smart investors who want you to make a lot of money, who want to make sure. And this was so blatantly stupid that the venture people, okay, so that's the other point. Most venture people, most financial, angel investors don't really know what they're doing. They're amateurs. They're amateurs. Don't depend on them. People would always say to me, money, oh, they're smart. And they're my colleagues, but they're not. I don't get it. I've been doing it for 45 years. I've got a reputation. I'm being very honest, very direct. I talk to investors all over the world. I've traveled to 34 countries. And how few of them really understand the simplicity of investor-founder alignment, that everybody needs to be made whole. And if everybody's whole, you're going to have a wonderful scenario of investment taking place over time so that everybody's going to be happy. It's a very strange thing. I think 90% of money out there is amateurs. If you can, and I like to say, you're not in the money raising business if you're looking for money. No, you're in the investor raising business. Get the difference? And being in control means you could ask the investor anything. There's this fear that you can't talk to investors about everything, but you can. You're in charge. You're in control. You could ask the investor, what investments have you made in this category? How much money do you have in the bank? You could ask them anything. You're trying to get them to be somebody important as a partner to you. And you're in control. They're just money. That's all they are. They may be valuable, and if you can, get smart money. That's great. But generally speaking, money isn't that smart. And you want them to be as involved if they're smart enough to be involved. But it's hard to find smart, dedicated investors. I have asked founders to create a questionnaire. Think about this, right? You're raising money, and when you could walk into a room, or if we were doing this now, and you had a questionnaire, what are you going to do for me? Are you going to be funding my second round? Who do you know that could open doors for me? I don't get why all founders don't do that. Christian, are you a founder?
Yes, I am.
Doesn't it make sense? Have a questionnaire. You give it to a potential, financial angel or whoever. Say, I've got some questions for you. And they get this. They go, oh my God, this person. The first thing you think when somebody gives you questionnaires like that is they really are in control. Isn't that impressive to get a questionnaire from a founder asking those very specific questions? I do. That's a turn on. Excuse me. I've got things that turn me on, but that's a real turn on to me.
I've found that people don't frequently ask questions that are disqualifying of their potential interests. So for instance, when I tell people about maybe, here's how I can help you get a job, I say, all right, well, one thing you could do to figure out if this is someone you want to work for is you could ask them about their experience with previous employees and tell them, all right, can you tell me about an employee that maybe you gave a promotion to or that you were quite satisfied with, just so you can get a cue of whether they actually like the people that work for them.
Right, right. But being in control allows you to do that. Kyle, what kind of money do you have? And are you a fund, an angel? I think you raised your hand, you said you were an investor. Am I wrong?
He is.
It's a family office structure, so there's no fund format.
Right, you invest off your own personal balance sheet. Right. So are you an active angel investor? What?
Yeah,
Your
we
experience?
aim for about 3 or 4 new investments per year and typically try to get involved as early as possible. So we'll save capital to fund through Series A.
Got it. So you're an early seed investor. What's the family office?
Quaker Capital Investments.
Quaker?
Quaker, yep.
Is that related to a food product or Quakers?
No, it's I guess the connection to University of Pennsylvania originally.
Got it. Got it. So Andrea, you're an investor also. What can you share that you think is vital as an investor?
I actually have more of a question about the metrics you use, especially when it comes to valuation. So more recently, we've been taking a more active approach. So I represent a single family office based in Asia. We've been taking more of an approach instead of equity participation where it's passive. We've been sort of taking, we've been driving the deals a little bit in as much as we are sourcing and coming into some of the US shells and then doing reverse mergers by rolling certain assets and companies into that shell and then getting it listed. So that way we have more of a control. What's that? Excuse me?
Are you talking about SPACs?
No, so it's not quite a SPAC. Right, it's actually a level sort of not below, but it's not subject to as much like paperwork and compliant, regulatory hurdles. So it's been something that the family's done for decades, but it's only more recently that I'm involved in it. For a while I pushed for, sort of that Occam's razor where we do direct equity participation. But now that we have taken a look at our portfolio companies and seeing how, when you're at the mercy of a lot of these companies where we don't have control and can come into liquidity, that's become a bit of a concern for us. So now we're taking a more active role. In fact, we'd be hard pressed to get into something on a passive. Yeah.
So that's extremely interesting. Let me unpack the interesting points that Andrea is making. First, what business am I in? What business is Andrea in?
Exit.
We're not in the investment business.
The exit business.
We're in the exit business. Andrea's pointing that out. The minute an investor and a founder understands that they're both in the exit business, it goes to that point I mentioned before about being aligned. The only way you'll make money, real money, right? Many entrepreneurs aren't interested in building a $1 billion firm, though, please, if you could. But 90% is acquisition, more than 90% is acquisition, under $30 million in sales. But the problem is these companies don't exit. They're not designed to exit. That's a much more deeper point that Andrea is making, where her family office is saying, when we're investors, it's very passive. Here's our check, here's our money, now go off and build a company. I remember being on the board of one of my first major exits, and I said at the board meeting, first board meeting, should we always have the exit in mind? And they said, what are you talking about? We just started the company. We're less than a week old, Brian. This is our first board meeting, and you're already talking about exits? I said, well, isn't that the goal? Well, yeah, but how do I build and run a company with an exit in mind? I said, well, I think that's pretty straightforward. You know who it is you have to take customers away from for them to know you. If you're gonna catch a mouse, take their cheese. So I've said to almost all of my startups that I've invested in, at least 5 to 10% of your conversation at your board meetings should be about the exit. Are we doing certain things that both meet the expectations of what a growing company as a startup should be doing, but are also the kinds of things that would catch the attention of a potential buyer? There's nothing like an early exit. Sometimes it could be too early. And if you wait too long, more competition comes into the marketplace, right? Prices go up, and it's a bigger decision. Those are all very much alignment questions that Andrea brings up. So without understanding completely what the product is that you're describing, Andrea, you've brought up a very important point that we are in the exit business. And when you use the word exit to an investor, and that's the only way, unless you're a social, impact company, it's the only way they're going to make money. And it's the only way you're going to really make money.
Yeah, no, great point. I have a twofold question. So one of them is, with COVID, there seems to be, and just by way of example, there's an inundation of projects claiming they can do COVID related stuff. And that's just a very palpable sort of example. Whenever you see a field that where a lot of projects are trying to address the same thing, it becomes an issue of, okay, it validates the problem, but then the deluge of projects, I mean, I'd love to kind of get your take on how you come down on picking winners. And of course, that's always a bit of a, right, that's part of what makes it exciting, but it's also what makes it precarious. And then the other is when it comes to evaluation, especially against a backdrop of SAFE and all that, where, now, what is it? They often say if it's a tech play, it's almost a guarantee 4 million valuation, that kind of stuff, right? I think YC has done a bit of a disservice, I guess, right, to investors all around. So more recently, I would say it's more of a moot point these days when it comes to valuation for us. But when it comes to angel friends, saying, hey, we want to look at certain things, I just don't really know like what to tell them anymore, especially because I personally have been burned in some of the, investments or speculative plays that I've made. So I'd love to get your input on that.
My question in there specifically, and I'll go down the line because there's a lot to unpack here.
Please, yeah, thanks.
Comments. So let me start with the valuation question. It really depends, of course, on so many factors. If you're a previous founder and you had an exit, your valuation could be higher. Ta-da, of course, that's a straightforward one. If it's a very deep knowledge space and you happen to be one of the people who knows it and you have a good team who supports it, it's generally a higher valuation space. What is a valuation? It's what the market is willing to pay for your company relative to, I had a very silly angel investor who said, I invested in a company with the highest valuation I can get. So I knew that my money was worth more. Of course, I never spoke to that person again. So the context of evaluation is also important to you in what I described before. How much money are you raising? At what point in time? For what dilution? Over this scenario. Companies aren't raising money here. They're raising money here. And it really confounds me, Andrew, when I see a founder do it wrong from the beginning and not have an understanding of what their terms should be from the beginning. And that really, of course, hurts them down the line, as I explained before, to some of you that were there when I was describing the silliness of this 3-founder startup. But a valuation is what the market is willing to pay for your company. I, by the way, rarely do a valuation over $5 million. Why? Because I need to make money. If I don't make money, I don't do it anymore. I stop. And unfortunately, angel investors don't make money. So let's go back to that point. I travel the world. You think angel investors make money? You think VCs make money? Oh God, no. I rarely find anybody who makes money at this. It's incredibly rare. You think that venture capitalists make money. Well, let's look at the stats. The stats are that 96% of the venture capitalists out there don't return the money to their LPs. Did you hear that stat?
Yes.
Isn't that a little bit crazy? That's extraordinary. And if that's the venture capital community, imagine how few people make money in the angel community, even less. So as an investor, you better be clear about what that valuation is. Andrea, you said the valuation to you is somewhat, quote, you used the word moot. I'm sorry, valuation is critical to making money. And it's not bad for the investor to make money. It's not antithetical. In California, when I talked to startups out there, and I spoke at Berkeley 2 weeks ago, I said, as an angel investor, I want to make lots of money. And people all giggled and smiled. I said, is that bad? And they said, well, in California, it sort of is. You're just supposed to write us a check. And I said, isn't that called philanthropy? The joke in our business is that it's philanthropy until it exits, right?
Right. Well, I just meant moot, given the type of play we're engaging in now. So, I mean, other than, the carry and how it's factored in, I mean, it's just, but I meant like for angel investing is still super critical, of course. Which brings us to the next issue of, Y Combinator, ever since they came out with SAFE, right? It's, and this like notion that, a lot of tech plays, once there's an MVP in place, it's 4 million, just slap that value on, valuation.
Well, for them, they created a product called the Safe Note. And it was for them. It wasn't for us. It wasn't for everyone else. They created it because they needed a fast, expeditious way to invest quickly with limited legal involvement in all these companies. Well, then that bled over to everyone else and said, well, let's use the Safe Note. Well, it was good for them, but it wasn't good for the founders going forward or for other people. What you want is not something that's cheap and fast. Anything legally that's done cheap and fast generally sounds like a bad idea, and it is. If you took the time to appreciate a preferred equity term sheet, you as founders would so much more appreciate all of the terms that are in it. I believe a young company needs a board. Oh, a board, that sounds so official, a board. Well, as a founder, and you've raised money, you have a 3-person board, you, common, another person from your company, more than likely common, and the money preferred. So you don't lose any control, right? You still own the company. You still own, the responsibility of 2 votes, on the board of directors. But a board is like training wheels for a young company. Governance is such an incredibly value add to a young company. And it gets you ready and teed up for the next round. But when you do these safe notes and you do these convertible notes, and you always have to watch out also because there's tons of side letters. You never know what else has been written that you don't even know about. It gets really problematic. So being principled as a founder, understanding why doing a preferred is in the best interest of you and the best interest of the money is important. I repeat this a lot. I'll do it here. How many of you have ever heard of QSBS? Wow. Carolyn, can you tell everybody what QSBS is?
Qualified small business stock.
Yep.
So it's a financial incentive it's a way for investors to make money. I'm not gonna be able to say it succinctly. So why don't you just go ahead?
My pleasure. So the government created the idea of a QSBS investment. And what it says is, if you invest in a company under 50 million in assets, which is 99% of all founder stock, seed stock, in a preferred product, in a preferred investment, upon the exit of that company, 5 years has to pass, 5 years has to pass, which is generally not unreasonable, 5 years, right?
Yeah.
You pay 0 taxes on the first $10 million of your exit. Let me repeat that. You pay 0 taxes on the first $10 million of your investment. And there's other added value to that as well, which you could read about.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of LinkedIn, you know.
Yeah, my 4-year-old grandson walked in here.
Oh.
No,
So
I haven't
cute.
talking to all these wonderful, smart people.
That's Dylan.
That is Stellan. That's right.
Right.
I'll find you a bit later, my love. All right. It's the greatest joy of my life, hanging out with my 4-year-old and 2-year-old grandsons here. For 5
Oh.
One of the benefits of COVID. Takes my heart. So great. He took me off my thought process. Okay, QSBS. So it is remarkable to me how many investors have never heard of QSBS, how many founders have never heard of QSBS. That's a linchpin of understanding why you even do your investing, why you even want to get an exit for using a preferred. How many of you, use a vesting schedule where your co-founder can leave and move away and take their shares with them if you don't have a vesting schedule? All of those things are in a preferred. And some people think that a preferred is more expensive. Sometimes it is a little bit more expensive. It doesn't necessarily have to be. But the lawyers are the ones, think about this for a second when I tell you this. The lawyers are the ones who have really done an injustice, and I debate them all. They've done an injustice to do convertible notes and to do safes because they are, quote, cheaper. And when they want to win the business, most founders don't know that they're not the rightest. You notice I didn't say right. They're not the rightest product to use, for a term sheet. So they compete on price. So they're never going to say, well, I think you should do a preferred because that's the right way to do it, and it's going to cost you more. Instead, the founder says, well, no, these guys said it's okay to do a safe and a convert, and it's cheaper. Well, I put it to you. Study it, find out what's the right-er way to do it. And I would say to you, under 90% of the circumstances, it's a preferred equity. And that will get the attention of more investors. They would rather do a preferred equity. You're going to have to do all the things that you are required to do in a preferred equity later anyway. And when you study it, you'll see. But particularly QSBS is the biggest reason why any investor would only do. I don't do any safes. I don't do any convertible notes unless it's a true bridge note. And a convertible note was actually born from a convertible bridge note, which is a perfectly logical 3-month. I need some more money to get to my Series A. I need an extra little bit of money. David, it looks like God is shining on you. I've got the beautiful sunshine hitting you. No, that was really cool. It's very, very faith-driven. Yep, there you go. Perfect, beautiful, looks great. So I don't know, did we lose Andrea? You there, Andrea?
No, I'm here.
Okay.
I just had to walk around, so.
Got it. So my issue that she brought up is proper terms, proper valuations. You will figure that out and use the right term sheets. So it seems reasonable. I mean, it's a small group of us. I'll answer your questions.
So Brian, I'm interested in this point you raised about founders who don't seem to be incentivized to want to exit. I can think of probably a couple examples in our portfolio where they've been moderately successful companies and they have some pretty impressive partners, but it doesn't really seem like there's an urgency to find an exit. Have you been in that situation, and how do you, I guess, give them a kick in the pants to understand that the alignment towards an exit is crucial?
It's a great question. So understand there's always some level of friction between the money who wants to get more money, out of an investment, and their desire to move forward with other investments. And sometimes they don't have big enough pockets. So sometimes that friction is even more, as you're describing. Exit, please, exit. It's easier said than done, of course. But my best answer to your question is every one of my investments, I have that conversation with when I invest. Where are you standing? what are you thinking about an exit? And the average exit time is now almost 10 years. 10 years.
Wow.
And I ask, these founders, do you want to be doing this for 10 years? Well, again, it's hard at the very beginning, but at least, Kyle, I've always had it on the board of directors agenda. Where does an exit, are we, and by the way, as you keep it on the agenda, it becomes much more familiar as the company is growing, that it's okay to consider the ideas of exiting. It's kind of nice to have a company and exit with a few $1 million in your pocket after 3 to 5 years, right? And unfortunately, you think that if you stay running the business, think about this carefully. If you stay running the business and you raise more money because you need to as the company is growing, right? What's happening to your shares? They're getting diluted. So if you have a conversation where a scenario, take a white sheet of paper, so crazy that founders don't do this. I'm here, here's the milestone, here's how much I'm raising, here's the money coming in, here's my next milestone. Of course, you're creating these scenarios. It may be better to exit after 5 years and wait, till 8 years where your dilution is lower. And remember what I said, even if you get an exit, founders own common shares. You don't get paid until the money gets paid. So there's something called a waterfall. If the company gets $10 million to exit, and and you look at all the preferences of your venture capital firms and everyone else, you may not have any money left to get down to you on the bottom of the waterfall. So these are really calculations that smart founders in control know and see as things are going forward. So that's the best answer, Carl. It's really a conversation to be had at the very beginning. And if you haven't had it in the beginning, it's a natural part of business. You build a company to sell it at some point. And if you can still be young and make a few $1 million, you'll have another good idea. Start another company. There's a phenomenon I love to talk about in Silicon Valley. After 5 years, I called one of my founders and said, so come on, what's going on? He says, well, it's not as exciting as it was the first 3 years. My parents were so pleased with what I was doing. My friends were talking about me behind my back as an entrepreneur. I was getting some new exciting customers. The press and media were talking about me. But then year 4, everybody forgot about me. And by year 5, I was kind of tired about what I was doing. And so in Silicon Valley, there became this sort of phenomenon where a lot of founders after 5 years, and that's why I called this founder, I said, are you still going to continue to do this? He said, nah, I'm going to give it to one of my employees here to run. I'm going to open up a B&B. I'm going to go to an ashram. And I'm going to get out of this. And they actually had a name for it in Silicon Valley. It's called an awakening, where you've been doing you've been running a business for too long. It just hasn't gotten the traction you hoped. No one's talking about you anymore. Now you're just the mundane business that's trying to make ends meet. So the reality is that's most companies. And there's no reason why as a small company you couldn't exit with a few $1 million rather than the hope of keeping at it and increasing your chances for an exit, but decreasing your chances for money and doing something else with your life. See, that's the other thing I love to talk about, time. Your time in doing what you're doing is so valuable. And most of the time you don't think about time. I could see one person on this phone call with white hair like mine. I can't believe I started doing this 45 years ago. That's a long time. And I have every 10 years changed my life. My first business, I sold, second business, I sold, each after 10 years. I saw Pippin when I was younger, and there was a great song with Ben Vereen in it. I want my life to be something more than long. And I wanted to have multiple chapters in my life. And that's just me personally. So as I share my own personal sense of my evolution and growth in my life, which has been extraordinarily fun and happy, I've been married for 38 years to my babe, my partner, my love. All my kids are entrepreneurs. Everything has worked out. The plan has been well executed. And I'm feeling like I'm the happiest person you'll ever meet, at least in 2D these days.
We have 2 questions in the chat.
Yeah, so ask your questions. Thank you.
SJ, do you want to ask your questions? Is she there or he there?
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so nowadays we do see a lot of these grants being issued as part of, some kind of a either a hackathon or, some kind of a pitch competition where they don't take any, they don't dilute any of the stock. Basically, they don't take any equity, but, you end up getting a sizable chunk of a grant. So my question was, how does that impact the angel round? How is that a plus or minus? How does the either the valuation or how does the angel look at it, especially during the angel round?
Well, you just used this G word. You're saying that there are some accelerators, incubators, whatever you want to call them, baiters, that are willing to give you something, a space, maybe, I hate the word mentorship because no one really is a mentor. Real mentors, I hate when the word mentor has been bastardized. If you each have one mentor in your life, you're incredibly lucky. But we on our side of the equation love to say we're mentors. We go home, we tell our families we're mentoring these young, bright kids. You're advisors. Don't sully the word, mentor. But you're saying there's this organization, some baiter, that is giving you some services and money, and then you use the B word, grant. And how does that affect how you'll be looked at by money later as an investor? Great. I mean, if somebody's willing to give you money for free with no strings attached, that's great. And it's non-dilutive. So that's always.
Now, is there a way to leverage ourselves in a pitch? Like, how do we, when we, how does that change our position in terms of, how can I leverage that? Yeah.
I don't understand the question.
No, I mean, when we make a pitch and when we do get this as a, how do I use that grant being awarded to us as a cash grant? It's a sizable chunk. Let's say it's a $500,000 grant.
It's extremely positive. The U.S. government is always looking at grants, particularly in medical devices and pharmaceuticals. So that's a normal part of the equation. We have a company that's in the pharmaceutical business. They got $18 million for the grants.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is extraordinary under any circumstances. And the founders still own a sizable chunk of the company. And we love it because all this money has gone into a company to grow it. And it's been non-dilutive. And no governance involved. Just how are you spending the money? So it's all good.
Okay.
All good. Unless they have some strings attached to something as, later, 5% on top of sales or something, which never works because you need all that money. So that's all good. Any other questions?
And how does the valuation change if I have 2 granted patents, for as an example?
Well,
all related to the product.
It always depends. I always hate it when somebody gives me a presentation and asks me what I think. And if somebody actually tells you after 10 to 15 minutes of you giving them a presentation, just walk away. First, they're assuming they actually know what they're talking about. Who can actually give somebody good qualitative input? And why would you listen to somebody who can give you think, qualitative input after 10 to 15 minutes? Unless it's cursory, unless they say, well, I need to know more information. Give me your investor deck. Let me follow with some questions. Then their responses, obviously, and their input to you is going to be a lot better. But we've made this business show business. So people give presentations and Brian, what do you think? Yay. Well, we can give it a little bit of, pointers about better clarity about something that you're saying was unclear, something more valuable about, your value to the marketplace. It's not always good for somebody to give you input that quickly. And always admire people who ask you follow-up questions. Turns out, Bonnie, I've told her that some of the best venture capitalists are ex-journalists. because they're so good at inquiring. Andrea, brought up the point. It's hard to find a winner. Picking, the word picking, I love that. My angel investors over the years, the New York Angels, would say, Brian, I only want to see the best deals. Okay, how do you determine that? We're at the early seed round. The average number, I'm filled with stats, so I can give you answers to your questions with stats and facts behind them. Mm-hmm. The average number of investors in a seed deal, 130 some odd members of the New York Angels, is 6. Just 6. That tells you something, that not everybody thinks that every deal that everyone else is investing is the deal for them to invest in. It's a fire hose of companies that are coming at them. But the average number of investors per investment opportunity is only 6. So everybody sees something different. Everybody connects to to a founder completely differently.
Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. On the 3 founder example that you mentioned, what do you think it was their biggest mistake, and why do they got into that situation?
Well, the biggest mistake was undervaluing their company and not creating a scenario that says they're going to be so diluted out, no matter how successful their company is, they're not going to make money, and they don't have the incentive to stay.
Okay.
Is there anybody on this phone call, on this Zoom call, that doesn't want to make money from their company? A significant amount of money, not just like an income, right? No. And if your investors know that, they should be proud of you. Yeah, I want you to become rich. I want you to make a lot of money. So that was their biggest mistake, and now they have to live with it. And it's going to be a big problem for them. Because if you don't, what is that silly line? You make your bed, now you have to lie in it. Well, they can't change their bed. Their bed is made. There's only 100% of something. It's not 150% of something. There's only 100% of something. And unfortunately,
not the producers.
What?
Not in the movie The Producers.
Right. Well, yeah. Integrity.
Yes.
So Brian, just to close the loop on some of the open questions or just comments that you've made, which effectively says, okay, so a number of things. Angels, VCs typically don't make money, but there's bound to be counterexamples, maybe present company included, right? Like such as yourself. And the other is the question of, when your investor, your angel group, says, well, how do we pick winners? Like, how would you address that? So, and I say this against sort of this backdrop of every now and then I come into groups that one of them has made a fund out of this, started out as a syndicate of sorts, but now they're, raising their second fund, which effectively gets into a lot of they seed a lot of projects, or not a lot, but a handful of them. And they know who's more likely than not to do a follow-on because they're, in bed with the Sandhill boys, right? So that's one way. Always start with the end in mind, right? To your point earlier, like, how do you not have an exit in mind, right? Like, you got to start with that in mind, at least from our school of thought. But yeah, I'd love to see I'd love to get your take on how you would address some of those nuance, and then whether you've ever looked at anything other than angel investing. So, you've been happy as a clam on high waters doing what you're doing. What is it that made you successful and happy in this niche without ever wanting to maybe scale up? I'm not saying you haven't. I don't think I know, but do you ever think about that? Because anytime you have traction, the idea is to scale up, right? So, but how do you know when to stay there and go deep versus go broader or cross different?
These are fundamental questions of angel investing and venture investing. We all want quality deal flow. Or let's even back that up. We want deal flow. I've gone to presentations, Andrea, where I talk to audiences of venture capitalists and angels, and they tell me that they actually have deal flow. And I ask them how much, how many companies did they look at per year? They say, well, 10, 15. And you need enormous deal flow to be able to at least believe that you have some kind of filtering process in mind, other than choosing your tallest companies, right? And many of them say to me, we don't have many choices, so we have to invest to be angel investors. Oh, okay. So you're investing to be an angel investor, but you don't really want to invest in that company. Well, it was the best we had. That was the best choice we had. So the first thing you have to have enormous deal flow. So from my vantage point, Andrea, everyone, I love doing this. I love talking to you. So I am a nut. I'm a nut. This is my life. This is my joy. My joy is to mix it up with you, to answer your questions, and to learn who you are and what kind of companies you've got. Because whatever it is about my background and having done it a long time, it's sort of like Texas Hold'em, I say. And you're familiar with Texas Hold'em, and somehow they all start from hundreds of tables in a big room, and the same people seemingly get to those last tables. How do they do that? They have the same choices everybody else has to some degree, right? But somehow you have a nose for it, like a news person has a nose for news. I think from my vantage point, I have a nose for it. But more importantly, and I'm asking you to sort of reflect this on the side of a founder, have principles, have policies. I won't invest in a company over X number of dollars of valuation. I won't invest in a company unless it's doing a preferred. I won't invest in a company unless I have access to consulting to them, unless they're coachable, unless they smile, unless they're funny. So I have elements about my choices, and I'm blessed with the fact that I have a son who's my partner, who's younger and can see things I don't see. So there's a nice sort of balance there. But in line with this question, and I just have to throw the stat out, and sorry for boring Bonnie, but if you, at the end of this, do a Google search for the following: Yale, Harvard, venture capital success, you will find a recent study that Yale and Harvard did. And they asked the fundamental question: does skill have anything to do with venture capital success? It's almost like a joke question. Are you serious? Well, they asked that question, and the answer came back 0. 0. Now, that's at the early stage, of course. And all the venture firms that you're familiar with, the bigger ones, they have the benefit of reputation for latter rounds. So that's why you hear about them. But in the earliest seed rounds, luck plays into it so much. But I was talking to the president of Keiretsu the other day. If everybody has principles, everybody holds true to what will work best. It's like the dials I told you about at the beginning. Tune those dials to be more optimized across the board in everything you do. If I see a FOMO, everybody knows what FOMO is, fear of missing out. Howard Morgan, one of my closest friends, the founder of First Round Capital, always said to me, Brian, if you see a FOMO deal, walk away from it. You'll be basing your decision too much on emotion and not enough on fact. You don't want to miss it, so you throw money at it. The amount of time that it takes for a lot of people to throw money at a company to invest is so tiny these days. I don't call it due diligence, DUE. I call it DO. I look for reasons why I want to invest, unless I find a fatal flaw. Because certainly in an early company, when you're doing due diligence, you're going to find a lot of reasons not to invest. They haven't done anything yet. They haven't figured out very much. But I will look, if you're asking me, Andrea, what I look for founders who are in control. They just have that knowledge to figure things out. You believe they're going to figure it out. You can tell. Now, I've built businesses and I've sold them. So I have a commiseration as an investor with a founder, a little bit more than most. So that works for me. So I want to see a founder that's in control. I want to see that they're running their business well, that they're raising money well, as I said to you before. And I need a lot of flow. I need a lot of opportunities to look at.
Find the vulnerability. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, Faye.
I'm sorry. Okay, bye.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Faye.
Beautiful Faye. Faye is an old friend, a dear, dear, special old friend.
Look, mine as well. Hi, Faye.
Hi, honey. Sorry to be so late.
That's okay. That's all right. Well, we're kind of finishing up now. So I've broadly commented on the points that you have raised. So here's another question. Do you give feedback to the founders you reject on why you rejected them? Yes, of course, absolutely. What else is the point of talking to a founder without giving them something to improve on what they're doing? At the New York Angels, I created an app that while the presentation is being given, it's called Angel Survey, all the angels are criticizing, offering input. So that as soon as that presentation is over, all of this input is being flooded back to the entrepreneur. That's the greatest value. Our job is only one job, to help you. And the New York startup community is one giant incubator of people who want to help you. Bonnie is only a giver. We are givers. We are 100% about giving. And it's so much fun to give, to see all of you. So in the few minutes we got left, Carolyn, your founder?
Yes.
What do you got?
So I'm the CEO and co-founder of ClearOps, which is a privacy technology company. And I'm going to say what I believe in based on this discussion. I believe in the right to privacy. I believe it's a human right, and I very strongly believe in it.
Then you feel it immediately, right? So she just started by telling me what she believed, and I believe that too, Carolyn. Tell me what else you believe.
Oh, sorry?
What else do you believe about in your business?
In the business, in my business, I believe strongly that we have figured out something that no one else has. And I believe that I am a unique person like nobody else out there and can build a business that no one else is thinking about yet.
Okay, but what is the business that you believe in? So privacy, you got me.
Yeah. So started out building products that are providing privacy insights while using existing workflows. So our first product is responding to security questionnaires. There's a lot of due diligence that's done, and there's nothing that's done with the due diligence information that is received. So
the individual is at a company who's being forced to fill out forms about privacy, and how they should view those forms. Interesting.
Yeah, more of that they're being forced to fill out the forms in order to get business. But then once they send it out, it's like it's done and gone, but there's all kinds of information in there that can help improve the business.
Interesting. Okay, Christian, what do you got? What do you do?
What do I do? So I am currently building a note-taking app, and that's the.
What do you believe in that's important?
I believe that what you read and your thoughts based on it form new mental connections that help you refine your thinking in ways that other people just don't appreciate. And I think that when people try to take notes to memorize things or to collect information, that it doesn't work. And most of the note-taking apps today are about organizing information that is a very abstract work process that just looks like homework.
So you believe you have a better way of organizing individuals' notes?
No, the opposite, that you shouldn't have to organize things at all. And that the process itself should be more intuitive, and that the user experience of the note-taking apps themselves should be much more fully integrated into your lives. And that if you don't do so, you're not going to do it because it's just work.
Well, fundamentally, I think everybody on this call says that's really interesting. Now it's all about how you execute on that. What is the executable on this?
Well, the executable obviously is delivering products and applications that people really like. And so most of my work in the past was as a marketer, first trying to do customer research to figure out what do people actually care about. But then I realized even when I try to help companies, products they build aren't necessarily great because they didn't integrate that into the product development process. So then I taught myself how to design products and how to.
So is there a word for that? Is there a new descriptor that talks about the kind of business you're in?
I don't know. I mean, annotation was typically the businesses that are similar. So like you have Hypothesis, which is a company that's been around for a long time, and they do annotation. And there are a few other companies that do something similar, but none of which have focused on UX or customer research the way I think.
We're limited, unfortunately, in our English language by the words that are available to us, right? I love to make up new words. I like to describe new things in new ways, so you sound a bit more special. Sometimes I love to use acronyms. When I was in the PR business 100 years ago, I said I did rapid publicity management, RPM, and everybody said, that's what I want. I want rapid publicity management. So I got all these new customers. It was really interesting, just by the marketing tools or the acronyms that you can use. My attitude about what you've described, and this is really, really important, so everybody listen closely. I love to ask what business you're in. And doesn't that sound like a simple question, Carolyn, David, Tristan, Daniel, Andrea, everybody? What business are you in? And do you know that most founders can't answer that question? They don't really know what business they're in. And the silly story I tell was a guy was making a presentation from a company called Black & Decker to his ad agency. And at the end of the presentation, the ad agency executive looked at the chairman of Black & Decker and said, so what business are you in? And the Black & Decker executive was really upset when they asked a stupid question. He ran out of the room screaming, how dare you ask me such a stupid question? And after back and forth of anger, going back, asking the question again by the agency executive, the founder of Black & Decker, president, said, what business do you think I'm in? He says, well, I thought you're in the whole business. And the guy looked at him and said, all this time I've been in the drill business. So the attitude about what business you're in is really a reflection of the view that you've got. And you need to have a customer view of the business you're in, not just a view from the standpoint of who you are as a founder. And once you know what business you're in, oh my God, these things get easier. Because when things happen around you, you say, nope, that's not important. That's not the business I'm in. That's why I was asking you, Christian, what is that? I'm trying to sort of get my hands around what it is that you do. And it's not clear to me yet. So you have work to do to figure that out. What business are you in?
I already know that answer.
Oh, what is it?
Capturing ideas. I'm in the business of helping people capture their own ideas. That's
interesting. I was in the business of creating understanding. So you're closer to something. But again, I don't know your business. I don't know if that works, but it does sound simple enough. And whatever you're doing should be describable in 7 words or less. That's been studied in terms of positioning statements. 7 words or less. So any more questions? Let's see. Yes, Faye, I'll always be a speaker.
Thank you, Brian. Sorry to miss all of this. Hi, everyone. I'm in the matchmaking business.
She's an extraordinary matchmaker, no question. And I miss this person. Prior to COVID, I had to figure out, like all of you, this is part of the other thing I'll end on, being vulnerable, opening yourself up to investors, opening up yourself to partners, opening yourself up to the people involved in your success, means talking personally. I turned 65, got my Medicare card. It still felt like I was 18 and still really wanted to change the world in a big way. But I forgot that I was 65. It's easy to happen. Believe me, you'll be there too. And I found myself being drawn into something bigger than me and bigger than where I was in my life. And I ended up stopping it, thankfully. This was pre-COVID, so thankfully I did. But I had to recalibrate who I was, where I was in my life. And that issue that I brought up to all of you about time. Time is everything. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time with me. Don't waste your time with anybody. Time is incredibly, incredibly precious. And if somebody is wasting your time, say thank you very much, bye-bye, and go on to talk and be around people who won't waste your time. And there's always a lot of people who have opinions on a lot of stuff. Make your decisions clearly about the people you really want to bring into your tent and stay with those people. And be careful about ignoring those people who are already in your tent. And don't lose sight of them and their interest and their connection to you. So I'm now looking at the sciences, which has always been my life, and looking at other possible ways as we're all sitting home more during COVID, more contemplative about our lives and the things that matter and the things that are more important to you. So I'm trying to figure that out myself. But I'm much more active as an investor than ever before. I see more companies, hear more presentations, and learn more from you. So Daniel, what business are you in?
Hi, I am in the business.
Ooh, that echo.
So like a weird echo. Hold on. Am I right? Am I good now? Yes.
Yes.
All right. Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay. I'm in the business of solving the problem of shopping for clothing online. I believe that the same level of personalization that you have when you watch movies on Netflix, when you listen to music on Spotify, hasn't been achieved yet on the fashion industry. And that's why we are creating a AI platform, a curation platform for the fashion business, for the fashion world, where you're able to, based on your body type, you're able to find clothing that fits you well.
Okay. I mean, it's an area I've invested in. It's an area I know very, very, very well. Needless to say, it's a challenging business arena, right?
It is.
Because there's Body Labs that was just bought, maybe say 8
By
months
Amazon.
ago by Amazon.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of companies like Body Labs that do your measuring for you online. Fashion, depending on high luxury or low cost value. I wish you luck. That's a challenge. That's a big challenge. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in New Jersey.
Usually I say that's too bad when I hear people from New Jersey, because I'm from a lot of my friends from New York have run to New Jersey, so it's fine now. It's okay.
Yeah. We have our office in New York, but I live in New Jersey.
Yeah, New York. You get it. I don't mean to be rude.
I know.
David, what do you?
We'd love to get more of your insight if you have some time later.
So it's hard for me. I have a meeting right after this in about 8 minutes, less. But Bonnie will give you my email. If you have any questions,
right.
More than happy to try and answer all your questions. I'm here for you.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
David, you're the youngster on this phone call.
Yes. Yes.
What are you doing?
I connect clients with healthcare professionals. Mental health care professionals. I believe that people with insurance should be able to get quality care. And I also believe that having gone through the training for being a psychologist, and having an ex who's an MD, nobody's ever taught business in med school. And so I am the mediator between clients and healthcare providers, doing all the dirty work that healthcare providers who want to be in private practice, work on their own schedule.
Is it a consultative business? Is it a platform business?
Oh, it is. We are primarily a social media company at this point. So talking about COVID trauma, for example. So COVID-related trauma, talking about depression and anxiety. And so if you want to know more, I'm sorry?
What's your business model for that?
So what we do is we solicit calls. We have a very careful screening tool that I have created to try to find out what's really wrong with the client and match them with a professional who can help them, the appropriate modality. And that's
the matching.
I'm sorry?
You get a fee for the matching?
I get a fee for I get a fee for connecting, and I get a part of every visit.
Got it. So you're a marketplace. And the hard part, of course, about marketplace is that at some point they say, why am I paying you? Right?
Well,
So
yeah, I haven't run into that in 6 years. So
good.
Because in healthcare, nobody wants to do business. They don't know how to do business.
Right. Good. Sounds like a great opportunity. Trixen, what do you got?
Yeah, we help people socially distance and solve their medical, educational, and dining experiences. We believe that given COVID-19, we have some of the technologies that will help people do that remotely, as well as touchless, especially when it comes to the dining experience part of it.
Okay. So is it a product now?
Yeah. Well, we have in all three spaces, actually two spaces, both education and the healthcare. We have clients who are in beta trying it out, actually paying us for it as well.
Got it.
It's
Well,
a dining.
I've certainly enjoyed this. Let me see. We host. Oh, that's Bonnie. Faye, Carolyn spoke to you. Kristen got it. They weren't interested in the idea.
That's Jay.
Let's see, I'm just looking here.
Oh, Catherine Reed.
Didn't bother asking about customer research interviews and use the term. At this point, when we talk to investors, they weren't interested in the idea and didn't. Yeah, by the way, investors aren't interested in ideas. Let's be clear. Investors are interested in a business, in founders that can execute on building a business. There's a huge difference. And if the business can be executed on, I will take a bad idea executed brilliantly over a brilliant idea executed poorly. Make sense? And of course, there's gray in between as you sort of can move those up and down. But there just aren't enough smart founders.
What would you say is a convenient or maybe an easy way to maybe present some of that expertise?
How do you present that expertise?
Yeah, so for instance, I'm teaching myself how to develop a software, and I thought, all right, well, there's two ways in which I could do something I need to do anyway, which is I need to learn CRUD in order to learn, basically how to create any application. So I thought the basic activity is to create a to-do list or a to-do app.
Right.
And so I thought, all right, how do I make that into a portfolio piece? Well, I do a twist on it, and then I play around with the idea and make a list. I create like terrible to-dos and terrific tasks.
Right.
And those are two different portfolio pieces.
Well, I apologize. I would love to talk forever. Actually would, and sort of kind of do. But I have a Zoom call in 1 minute.
Oh.
I'm trying to figure out how to increase science literacy worldwide. How's that for a challenge?
Right. Need it.
Got your work cut out for you.
Yeah. So a friend of mine has started a nonprofit on how to tell fact from fiction for kids reading the news. How to teach a child to read the news and read it with the filter that that's fact and that's fiction. So we'll see.
That's great.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
Yeah, sounds really awesome.
yeah, I like to take on big challenges. Anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed this. I did. Thank
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Bonnie, for putting this together.
Thanks,
Caroline. Bye, Kyle.
Brian.
And bye, Andrea.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone.